Hello, everybody. Mark Atwood here on a Thursday afternoon. Adventures in a Cosmic Suit. What can I tell you today? Well, firstly, thanks for being here. Thanks for all your support. We're nearly at 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's mind blowing. And about 18,000 on Telegram. Don't forget to join the email list, please. Always check below in the description box for links, especially for today's show, because I just saw good morning from California. Hello, Nicole P, Tanya Chambers, KM, Saladin, Louise, Simone. That's a good question. I'll see if we can get to that. So the last time I saw this gentleman was when we did Adventures in a Cosmic Suit live. I don't even know how long ago it was. I think it was a couple of months ago at the monastery in Manchester in England. And he gave an amazing presentation. And that was after doing 5 shows on this channel. If you've not seen Michael Feeley's other shows, just go to YouTube and on my channel or Rumble or BitChute. Currently, by the way, the markoutwoodshow.com has been hacked. So if you do go there, beware, because it's been redirected to sort of gaming and horrible sort of websites. I'm trying to get that fixed right now, but that is where everything else is kept normally. Michael's knowledge is extraordinary. So let's bring him in. Hello, Michael Feeley.
Hello, Mark. It was the 6th of November, so quite a while ago now. I can't believe how quick the build-up was from organising it to the actual day, and now we're six weeks the other side of it now. So it's extraordinary.
Well, as you know, time doesn't exist; it's all a construct.
It is. So those 6 weeks, they're not there. But no, it was a fantastic day. It really was.
It was a great day, and it seems like yesterday, but it also seems like I'm already planning the next one, which is in April. You guys watching this, the links to the next one is below in the description. And I asked you earlier what we were going to call this show, and you said Divine. I'm going to finish the title because it's not in front of me.
The Divine Man in Man, and it is really with Christmas in mind, which obviously we're in the period of now.
Go on then, off you go.
Well, thank you. The reason I said this title really is because it's extremely pinnacle to this time of year with Christmas and Christians celebrating the Christmas celebration and not necessarily understanding the origins of where it comes from, not necessarily understanding what the character behind the whole period of Christmas is. And it does definitely relate to the Divine Man in Man, because it's really a Christos. It is really a divinity within you, and that the early Christian writers made that into a singular character instead of keeping it as it was in the true teachings, everyone or everyone's latent potential. So that's why it came about the Divine Man within man. And that also goes into some of the previous shows in relation to the pyramid, and how the pyramid is hidden within the cube, which is the fabric of matter. So it is divine within matter, your own divinity within. So Christ, who is Christ? What is Christ? Well, we have this marvelous system inside us where every month when the sun is in, the moon is in your sun sign, should I say, you develop a germ, a seed inside you. So every month for 2.5 days, we are in our sun sign. So whatever month is your birth month, that is when the moon is in your sun sign. And it is there for 2.5 days. And that, with the oils and the mineral salts of the body, create this germ, this seed, that is born in the solar plexus, which has a region called the manger. So now we have this seed. Now the word Christ means grain, seed, and it means to rebirth. So the word Christ is to rebirth, is seed, which then grows in a manger inside your solar plexus. Now it raises and it goes into the tomb, which is the pineal gland region of the mind, where it is stored for 3 days. and it rises for 3 days. We are now starting to get the Christ story, which is really, should we say, an anatomical process of our own enlightenment, which is called the Christos. Now, this seed, as the elder of the fish. So now we start bringing in the mitre hat of the Pope. We start bringing in the Christian symbol, which is a fish, which is related to Christ. And we start to get all of these little pieces of the picture coming together rather fastly in terms of what the Christ is. Now, anyone who reunites with this latent solar power within becomes Christified, or the God-man. So that is what we are. We are all Christ, but as I say, the early Christian writers reduced it to a singular person so that people will be pulled away from where the true salvation is, which is within them. And it was really, an effort by the Church of Rome, by the Council of Nicaea, by Constantine, to stop people ever realizing that they are in fact the Christ. So it is all what happens inside us. It is the place in Golgotha where that seed is crucified. Now, the meaning of the word crucify means to increase in power 1,000-fold. So when you start looking at the statues of Buddha, which means enlightened or enlightenment, and you see 1,000 lotus petals on his head, that's what it's relating to. It's relating to the crucifixion in Golgotha. So all of this really, and then again, when I've said before that the Bible is really Egypt, or the Giza Plateau, which is the sermons in stone, you have Christ, or the word Christ, encrypted within the mathematics of the Great Pyramid. We have said quite often, I guess, in the last couple of days, Merry Christmas. Now, what does Merry Christmas mean in Egyptian? It means pyramid burial. So in other words, your divine is buried within your matter, within your fabric of creation. So it always goes back to the same epicenter of knowledge. So the Christ, what is the Christ? It's all of us. And we were deceived, or the uninitiated have been confused because of the early Christian writers, the Christed men, that have reduced it to a singular person rather than the truth, which is each and every one of us.
Hey, that's a great episode. Council of Nicaea has always interested me because they ripped out, was it 900 books from the Bible, including the books of Enoch?
Enoch, the initiator, who was alive for 365 days, the year, the sun, there was so much editing, changing, and all of these different things, so that the Church of Rome dictated what people would believe from that point. And there was so much, as I say, taken out and then added in or changed, because some of the scriptures, like the book of Thomas, tells people about their divinity, their sovereignty, their greatness. It talks about the law of attraction. It tells about how to connect to that. So, of course, any system that wants you to be controlled and have limited knowledge of the truth, they really don't want you to know how powerful you really are and what you really are. So they removed it, and then they presented you with different versions. And of course, we've had many, many different versions of the Bible. The King James Version is the most read. The King James Version has been attributed to Sir Francis Bacon, whose numerical value of the name is 33, which again leads us on to many different things. And it really talks about being our own spear shaker. Now, some people may already get where I'm going when I say spear shaker, because I'm talking about Shakespeare. And that really is the philosophical Hercules. And the pillars of Hercules are the two anterior pillars of the mind, which is really the gateway to the Holy of Holies, the hippocampus. And that is guarded. So no further beyond is the Latin word in relation to those two pillars, unless it is the energy of the four Amen, forever and ever Amen, which goes through the pillars of Hercules into the mind. So that's when we're talking about being our own holy lance, being our own spear shaker, being our own philosophical Hercules, where we pass through the mind into this illumination. And if you look at Psalms 46, that was written by Bacon when Shakespeare would have been 46, and you count 46 words down, you get the word spear, and if you count 46 words up, you get the word shake. So within the numerics of Psalms 46 and the age 46 of Shakespeare, and the 46 words down and the 46 words up, it starts to piece together. So yeah, the Council of Nicaea edited, removed, and presented what they wanted people to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I've been intuitive saying for quite a long time, we're all fractals of God. Came across the concept that everything was an inside job a number of years ago. Didn't quite understand it. Been going through this process, this adventure in a cosmic suit, trying to work all this stuff out piece by piece, like a amateur detective. You're more of a Poirot. I'm more of an Inspector Clouseau, I think, in this scenario. But
Yeah, probably say Hetty Wainthropp.
Hetty Wainthropp. Americans watch this going, what? What did he say?
Yeah.
Betty what?
Miss Marple.
Miss Marple. She was smart. Yeah, and have you ever come across the work of Charlie Freak?
I don't believe so. Not by name, anyway.
He's worth looking at because he talks about the ascension of the chrism oil and this ascension to the top. This ascension's all inside, and the Bible's a metaphor, which is basically what you've just said there.
Yeah.
But this concept of the seed in the stomach, was it in the stomach and then goes into the brain? I'd never come across that before. Where did you?
It goes in. It's actually born in the solar plexus, which is a region called the manger. The solar plexus, solar, sun, which was basically, it charges in there for 2.5 days because it's when the moon is in your sun sign. So it's there for 2.5 days being charged with a lunar and solar electrical charge, and then after 2.5 days it rises to the tomb, where it remains for 3 days, where it's crucified, as we said, which was to increase the power of 1,000-fold, and that is really the resurrection and Easter within inside your head in Golgotha.
So what can we do with this information, Michael?
We can become Christified beings. We can become Christ. We can become Osiris, which is the Egyptian equivalent, and we can better ourselves. We can increase our wisdom. We can increase our knowledge. We can get out of here, and by that I mean we can escape the false matrix that I've also spoken about on previous shows. Because to remain in the false matrix is dependent upon people being sinful, which just means ignorance. So if they can keep people ignorant, then they can keep people in, the vibrations of their false matrix. For everybody who then becomes the Gnostic or becomes the enlightened or the knowledgeful, we can then escape it. Now, when you look at the word ignorance, it contains the letters G and O, which is Gnostics, which is knowledge. So ignorance is the avoidance of knowledge. And the more people that become full of wisdom, full of knowledge, we can take you. The more people that understand how the body works, how they can then equate that to the tree of life, because the tree of life is the nerves of the body. And this seed goes up and down the spine, which is Jacob's ladder, and how Jacob means heel catcher, which then brings in the zodiac and the influence of the zodiac, the 12 on the body. We can understand that we cannot eat from the fruit from the plane of dust, which is Adam, made from dust. It is the earth plane, and the earth plane is from the solar plexus down, and the kingdom of heaven is from the solar plexus up. It is the bread that comes from heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. It is the bread that comes down. And once we understand that we can only eat the fruit, the seed, from the Christified being from the heaven, and not from the lust, the sexual urges, the spasm of the animal, because then that is evil. Whereas if you return that seed to the cerebellum, then that is good. And that really is what we need to be doing. We need to be transforming ourselves and using this seed that we get every month and not waste it. And that is the true origin of celibacy.
I don't like that.
The thing is with celibate, it's been completely misused.
Yeah.
And like any process of the body, it talks about thou shalt not commit adultery. In other words, thou shalt not waste the holy seed. And when things are done with, again, the spasm of the animal, and it becomes lustful and meaningless, then you are technically wasting the seed. If you regenerate normally 10% of that seed, which is where we get the word tithing, when we put money on the plate of churches, you are saving 10% of that sacred seed, that sacred oil, the chrism, and that goes back to the head. So that is the kind of thing we do to start transforming ourselves using the things that we already have inside us.
Right. So just to be absolutely clear, I think it was about 8 years ago. I was involved with ayahuasca ceremonies, and one of the people holding space was projecting this idea that men should abstain from any kind of ejaculation, and that's a very powerful thing to do, and that's aligned with this, correct?
That's in alignment with the returning of the Christ oil to then be used again as a sacred energy. But of course, if you are engaged in a compassion, in a love, in a compassion, then you're not wasting anything. If you are involved again in the spasm of the animal, you are simply just putting it around and wasting it. So it is among the same kind of idea, because wherever you look, whatever civilization you look at, whatever rituals they're doing, it comes from the same origin, it comes from the same place. So by abstaining from lust and animal behavior, then you are returning the seed, and your body is reusing that sacred oil.
There's a comment here from Ashley J2602, says just for the 2.5 days to be celibate. Does that make sense to you, that it's during that period of time, and that period of time is to do with the sun and the moon?
Yeah, the 2.5 days, the moon is in each sign of the zodiac for 2.5 days. So when the moon is in your sun sign, which is the month of your birth, then that is when this seed is created in the manger, in the solar plexus. So for those 2.5 days, the seed is in the manger. That seed then goes to the mind, the pineal gland, where it rests for 3 days in the tomb, and it is crucified in Golgotha, which is the place of skulls, which is your head. So yes, you are preserving the sacred seed, which you are using for enlightenment rather than the spasm of the animal, to gratify the senses, because we need to. And again, as I discussed in previous interviews, the pentagram, which is the little universe, which is man, which is the 4 elements plus the 5th element, but in the middle you have the 6th element, which is the void, where everything is created, the nothingness. But in order to overcome those senses, there are certain processes that you need to do in order for the one to rise above the 4.
Oh, you mentioned the skull. I need to show you this. I think you'll like this.
Oh, lovely.
I'm just showing off, really, because I got this skull.
Let's see, you went out with Indiana Jones in the last couple of weeks and got that.
I did. I thought instead of getting laid, I'll just go and get a crystal skull.
The perfect retention of sacredness.
I mean, there's a lot of people watching this are going to be very disappointed in this because they like it, but it also makes me wonder why the cabal pushed porn so much, because that's what that's really about, isn't it? It's about weakening men, weakening people.
Yes, of course it is. And again, everything that is pushed on us is there to hide what's behind. If you imagine, the Roman shields pushing against, you don't see the soldiers and the infantry that are pushing the shields. In the same way that when you push out a particular story, then you are confusing the uninitiated. You are confusing them because you are stopping them from seeing what's behind. Now, when you look at literally just an ancient statue, for example, when you look at the likes of statues and pictures, some of the pictures, like the Virgin Madonna and things like that, some of the people have 6 fingers and 6 toes, which are relating to the 6 elements, which is the void of creation. They will use hand signals to point to the beginning of this sacred cipher. They will hold instruments in their hand, which is telling you the system that you need to use in order to work out the cipher. So all this can come from paintings, statues. A lot of it was for posterity, for future generations to understand and to decipher. But everywhere you look, this information is there. And if you can work it out, if you can look beyond the shields, if you can look beyond the story, there are 7 layers of understanding in Holy Writ, in sacred writings. The first 6 introduce, and the 7th completes. So unless you get to the 7th level, you're not going to understand what it's saying. So when you go to the likes of churches and Sunday worship, you are getting the very, very first superficial level, which are stories. And people are believing the stories and neglecting what the stories are hiding. And it is literally everywhere that you look.
Well, this is why I stopped going to Sunday school. I found that it was just like learning stuff by rote as a kid, and my questions just got brushed aside all the time. So I ended up just not going and playing out in the woods. I want to point out to everybody here, while we're early into this, that you came to the event that I did in November, and you gave an amazing performance. And you could have gone on for hours and hours, but we had lunch, so you couldn't. But fortunately, you're going to go and do that again, and you're doing an event in Manchester. It's at the monastery, which is called the Secret of Secrets. And the link for this is below the video. There's the monastery. This is where we performed. The last time I saw Michael was just there, and that's on February the 12th, Manchester, England. Sunday the 12th of Feb, 10 till 4 o'clock. And the tickets are here on Eventbrite. And that's going to be a lot of fun, because you're not only going to be sharing this kind of knowledge, you're also going to be decoding the monastery, correct?
That's correct. What happened was, before lockdown and all that charade, I was going to do a cathedral tour, and I was going to do, for argument's sake, something in the north or northwest, something centrally, and something south. And what I was going to do is I was going to go around a cathedral and take a group of people and point out what's not being taught, what's not being shown, that the priesthoods know about. Obviously, when public group gatherings were blocked and stopped, then that kind of fell by the wayside. Now, the 6th of November, when I did your event, really was my return to live speaking. It's the first one I've done in years because of the lockdown and everything else. But it gave me the buzz and the bug to do it again. And I contacted the organizer and basically said, this is what I would like to do. Would you be, up for me doing it there? And she said, what a fabulous idea. So the seed was then born in the major for me in terms of that. And how the day is likely to pan out is there'll be a meet and greet in the morning and a tea and a coffee or water, which will be available throughout the day. Then I'll be doing, in one of the rooms there, I'll be doing a full presentation, which is a slideshow presentation, again with breaks because it gets heavy. And then we'll have a lunch, which is included in the tickets, all together in some secret room somewhere, I would imagine. And then what I'm going to do post-lunch is we're going to be having a walk around the monastery itself. We're going to be going to where normally only the priests would go, because that's where a lot of the secrets are hidden, which for those who went to Manchester is behind where the screen was, behind the projector screen. That is the area for the priests only. We'll be going there. We'll be looking at various things and various places, going into how it was a secret meeting place for the Knights Templar, and how they've left their little symbols in various places to mark it as their territory, shall we say. And we can have a real sort of esoteric, deep, knowledge-based day. And we would plan to maybe could have conclude around about 4 or whatever, depending on how the day goes, and if there's lots and lots of questions, it may be extended. But it's on a Sunday, and I'm thinking by 10 o'clock people should be able to get there easy, and by 4 o'clock people will have enough time to get home without rushing. So that's kind of how it's likely to pan out. But of course, these things can change. But I'm really looking forward to doing it. The monastery are really, really behind it. The organisers who I'm speaking to, they tell me on November the 6th, you know, don't worry, we want you. So, you know, it's, I think it's going to be a very, very sacred day.
So do I. I'm going to come along because I need to get more of this information. I only really started decoding buildings a year and a half ago using these.
Yeah.
And I found it fascinating about every church in the world, or every building is they knew the energy lines, the water lines, and everything else, and everything's placed in certain positions because for energetic reasons. But then there's been something that's popped up in everybody's consciousness recently is things like Tartaria. And there's a question here from Ragamuffin. She heard cathedrals were really cathodes that resonated free energy and wanted to know your thoughts on that, because I've been going around telling everybody, oh, that's really a power station, not, you know, it's not a church. Where does your stuff fit in with that?
Basically, just going back just a step in relation to the buildings themselves. Again, speaking about statues pointing to where the cipher starts, a lot of the secret in this Dionysic architecture is the likes of the size of the buildings, the bars on the windows, the amount of statues, etc., because that is where the secret hides as well. You know, when you go to Manchester Monastery, there's 6 statues on either side, which is the number 12, which again, so there's a lot encrypted in numbers, in the numbers of bars of the windows, the number of windows themselves, because they're hiding numeric cipher and different cipher as a means of communication. You have on Earth the same as you have in the body. You have arteries that are you know, where the blood is pumped around. On Earth, we have ley lines where energy is pumped around, and you have energies from the cosmos coming in to what you call chalice points, which is the Holy Grail. Now, when it comes into the Earth's ley lines, it's pumped around the Earth's energy grid, and you have spiritually designed buildings that are specifically put at certain locations, usually the crossover of ley line energy, which is where it's at its most magnetic potency. And that is marked by dragon eggs, which are the domes around the world, which also actually represent the dome of the skull. And you have the cranium, which is oval, where they used to drink blood and the venom of the serpent in the holy dish, the sangreal, which is the cranium of the skull, hence the Oval Office in the White House, which is the God-man. So we have this consciousness as well. So you have these spiritually designed buildings, which are amplification buildings that are put on certain energetic potency spots, which then harness and use that energy, and it goes all through the buildings. It goes all around the pillows, it goes all around certain octave stones and different things. So absolutely, it is very, very sound based. It is very energy harnessing. So in answer to the question, it is absolutely for that reason, as well as other reasons as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. The film that we're editing at the moment of my tour of America has the opening scene is me inside the Oval Office.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, which is quite
There
amusing.
it is. It's in there.
Exactly. I'm just seeing if anybody else has got any questions. If you guys watching this have got any questions for Michael, feel free to ask. The other thing I want to point out to everybody is your website, which is michaelfeeley.com, michael-feeley.com, correct?
That's right, yes, yeah.
I spelt it right, Michael. Or is it .co.uk?
It's michael-feeley.com.
Spelled it wrong. Michael-Feeley. Always goes super slow when you're live.
That's your business.
It is. Do some of your brilliant jokes while I'm trying to find your website.
Oh, wonderful. I gave my friend a signed photograph of Harry Kane to hang in his pub. He's only going to put it above the bar.
Did you allow yourself to watch the World Cup?
I did. I didn't see every match, but I saw as many as I can because I do watch the tournaments.
I
Again, it's
thought
not
you'd be interested in the scoreline, 3-3.
3-3. Well, the
World Cup
whole
final.
of yeah, I mean the whole of soccer really is Masonic symbology everywhere. Even the current, fanaticism of taking the knee. Taking the knee is where Masons knelt over the body of Hiram Abiff, the master mason on Solomon's Temple. So even footballers taking the knee, which they say is for racism, is not. It's a Masonic ritual. When you start looking at the circle and the dot and the corner flags and all the parallel lines and everything, soccer is basically Masonic. You have 11 plus 11, which is 22. There's just so much symbolism in the game. But that's also interesting to watch as well. And of course, the symbol of Qatar and different things. It's just all there for us, really.
Well, it was packed. I mean, I've done a show on this already, but Messi had a magician's robe on at the end. He's got a tattoo of the eye on his arm.
Oh yeah,
He was doing the Baphomet symbol when he held up the cup. It was all there.
it always is. It always is. But it's right in your face. And again, unless you understand what you're looking for, it's just a show. It's just a robe. It's just a trophy. It's not. It's ritualistic. It's symbolic, and it's cipher for the initiated to communicate. For argument's sake, the number 138 means in cipher. It means note carefully. So when you get watermarks or when you get symbols at the beginning and the end of chapters, it's alerting initiates to the fact that there's concealed information. Now, page 138 would be a fantastic example. Note carefully. So that they're communicating and pointing out where the secrets are and where to find them and different things. But everybody else would just skip through them as if it doesn't matter. It's just a pretty pattern.
But you see, you've been studying this for a long time. You talk about the difference between the initiated and the uninitiated, the 7 levels of knowledge that you have to work hard to get and unlock this stuff to become a Gnostic. And, by my own calculations, 99.999% of the Earth's population is completely in the dark. So how are we going to get through this with so many people not knowing anything?
Well, that's why it's a world of sin. It's a world of ignorance. And the more and more people who we connect to and point these things out to, then they too begin to understand. It's instead of just seeing a beautiful church, beautiful statues that are pointing aimlessly at the sky or the floor, or that you understand that they're telling you something, and you need to look where the hand is, and you need to look at what they're holding, because that is the system of measurement that you need to understand the cipher. When you walk through the pointed archway of a church, you realise that you're becoming the fetus, the womb, to be reborn as you leave the yoni, the pointed arch, and all of these things that are being hidden from us because it's our rightful knowledge, and thou shalt not steal means those who are stealing your rightful inheritance, which is wisdom and knowledge. Thou shalt not kill. In other words, thou shalt not kill your spirit by doing things that are addictive, by doing things that are lustful for the benefit of your senses. All of these things have meaning. All of these things have a true essence. Your salvation is within you, within your body. And the Church of Rome pulled people away from where that salvation truly is, so that they will never find it. They will not find salvation on someone coming out of clouds on a white horse, because the salvation is you. And when you start talking about the spinal fluids, the River Jordan or Mary, which means sea of bitterness, it is the salt of the body. It is your salvation. Salt. That's where we get our salvation from. And you realise that you don't have to go anywhere but yourself, the true temple of wisdom, the key to which is your tongue.
I've just been drinking salts. I just
Yeah.
feel a lot better when you drink. And I did a show with Ian Clark recently, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and I just every time instead of drinking water, I always drink salts. It's incredible how better you feel because you just making the whole body work correctly. I wanted to point out to Laura Sheldon says she's just booked tickets for her and Norman. Nice one, Laura. I'll see you there. We go out for a drink on Sunday night. I'll stay in Manchester, but you guys watching this, the reason why I pulled up Michael's website is because if any of you want to, Michael's written a lot of books on this stuff because I know how some of you feel watching this. I feel the same. It's like, blah, 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 right? But he has written a lot of it down, haven't you, Michael?
Yeah, the reason that I write it in book form is when I do a presentation or when I do a show like this, it is at the speaker's pace. But when you have a book, it's at the reader's pace.
Yeah.
And that you can sit down and you can take as long as you want to let it digest. So a book is extremely beneficial to, first of all, document it, and two, to work out what the reader needs to see, but also they're in control of how fast they go through the book.
Yeah, and if you guys watching this don't know, Michael was a trained police investigator, so he's extremely thorough and very funny, actually. And I highly recommend you go and read these books, especially if you're going to go to the event. If you want to learn really the nature of this stuff, Michael's the best guy I've ever come across. I've got a question, Michael. I was in Glastonbury recently, around the back of where I bought this crystal, stopped to look at the church there in the centre of Glastonbury. And then you start noticing a lot of windows that have been bricked up and then a lot of gargoyles, really horrible looking creatures. I think I read about this a few years ago, but I'd love to hear from you while we've got you here. What are those for? What they put on afterwards, later, for to change the purpose of the place, or what?
There's a couple of reasons for gargoyles. One of them, in a spiritual sense, is so that the dark forces think that the church has already been taken over, so they pass it by. Just like, metaphorically, the lamb's blood on the door, the angel of death flew by. It's the same in terms of gargoyle, but they're also the guardians of the cardinal points, and they're also demonstrating to us the human condition, which is ugly and grotesque, and the wings are the human potential. So we're going from the human condition to the human potential, and the ugliness and grotesqueness of the human condition can be transcended by the wings that enable us to transcend. So that those are the main reasons for these ugly, grotesque things on churches.
Cool. And somebody was just asking me to put the website link up for your event, and the problem is that it's an extremely long URL, so I've just shortened it for everybody, and I'm going to put it on the screen for those of you that can't go to the links in the description underneath this video. So there you go, tmass.tv/3H capital V capital A UY6. I did it very quickly. I could have customized it, but I didn't want to interrupt Michael. That will redirect to the link where you can get the Eventbrite tickets for the event in Manchester on February the 12th, which I shall be going to as well as a student. I think it's very, very good that you're putting things on like this, but especially after a couple of years of us not actually being able to get out and do seminars and workshops and things like that. That's why I think it's so important that we all get together and continue the learning, because there's nothing like learning when you're actually on the spot. We've all got used to learning from Zoom and online courses and all of that, which is great, but it's so much better to be in the room with somebody. And that was true at the event we did in November. I mean, I had to sit down and just listen to you. I was spellbound for over an hour that day, and you rattled through years of research, and it was really, really interesting. I mean, I highly recommend you guys go, if you can get to Manchester, go to that event. It will be amazing. So I'm looking here for some questions from people. I did see a few questions that I thought were interesting, but I'm going to have to... somebody here called Time Lord. Hello, Time Lord. Time Lord's real. Do you know that? Do you agree with that? I think
Time
Doctor Who.
Lord.
I'd love to do an episode on Doctor Who with you. I think it's packed with real, true stuff.
Oh, they all are. They all are, yeah.
Yeah. There was a good question here. I'm just looking for it. You could keep telling jokes while I'm searching.
Yeah, I had a Doctor Who pizza last night. It was lovely. It was lovely with some garlic bread.
No, you didn't say that. Garlic bread.
Peter Kay.
Yeah. Garlic bread. It's the future. Yeah, so Ragamuffin asked a question about, is the Devil's Tower really a giant tree stump? Well, I was there 2 months ago, and I'm telling you, that's a tree stump. Do you know about that? The
The
crystalline
devil,
trees?
the Christian, yeah. Trees. I've not been to that particular one, but trees are extremely sacred in terms of, again, saying the tree of life, which is of nerves of the body, you know, and the good and evil. The druids, which means knower of knowledge, you know, the sacred of trees. When you look at the only part of trees you can't see is the roots, and that represents the unseen, concealed knowledge. And the word blaspheme means to uproot in Hebrew. So if you are a blasphemer, what it means is that you're uprooting secret knowledge and manifesting it into the public arena. So that's all a blasphemer works. But the sacredness of trees is wonderful. All of these names that we give and all of these gods that we're worshipping are really forming component parts of the sacred alphabet. When you look at what Lucifer really is, it's divine light fallen into matter. So it's the fall from heaven fall into the earth in the body. When you start looking at what is the character Satan, the character Satan is the lord of matter. So anything that's materialistic is satanic consciousness. And all of these things that we either fear or we worship have a different meaning to what we are told they mean. But the sacredness of trees, again, is a subject in itself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
It is a wonderful thing. Karen Farrell is asking, where do we go when we die?
Your
I'm going
spirit
to the pub.
goes.
That's where I'm going.
That's a different spirit world. But basically, you are going, or your spirit or your essence leaves the body, like you would throw a coat on the floor, and it leaves the body, and it goes to the in-between world space. So you are kind of in between the worlds, where there's a specific space, and that is the spirit world. And you are able to come and go from the spirit world. You are able to exist there. You lose all the ailments or the problems associated and the limitations associated with physicalness, and you go to that space in between worlds.
Some people describe the ascension to 5D as a similar kind of experience. What's your view on that?
Well, dimensions are a frequency, and timelines are a frequency. So you don't necessarily have to go anywhere to get there. You can get there from anywhere, because again, you align yourself to that frequency, and you are there. You maintain the frequency that gets you there, and you remain in that dimension. So because in the beginning was the word, which is sound, everything is a convergent sound. So 5D is a different frequency to 3D and 4D and 6D and different things. Because it is a higher frequency that then has a different law of physics, I guess, you feel that you are in a different place. And there's this, my father's mansion or my father's house has many rooms. And that is, the multiple locations that we can exist in at any given time. We are multi-locational, we are multi-dimensional. Our awareness tends to, or we are only aware of an awareness that is in one place at a time. When we go to sleep at night, we have no awareness whatsoever that we have this physical body, because we've shifted our awareness to somewhere else. Unless you have an out-of-body experience and you're looking down at yourself, you have no awareness that this exists when you're asleep, but you have awareness of the dream world or the lucid dream world, or the fact that you're going somewhere else. And then when you wake up in the morning, your awareness comes back here and you lose awareness of where you've been. So we are always multi-locational, multi-dimensional anyway, we're drifting in and out of parallel existences. Sometimes through what is known as a pseudo appearance, we're going into parallel existences and we become ghosts in their reality, and we don't even know that we're in their reality, and we come back to our own. And this has happened to me. At the time, I had physical evidence that it had happened to me, and we're doing it all the time. We're drifting in and out of different places and different frequencies. So when we see a UFO, or where we see a spirit, or where we see something else, we have aligned ourselves to their vibration.
That's exactly what I've been saying in a much shorter way to people saying, why can't I call in the ships? Why don't I see the UFOs? Why don't I see the dragons and the fairies and everything you see? And I'm like, and I say the same thing, well, they're there when you're ready. That's the short version, isn't it?
No, they are. And I think in order for you to see them or catch a glimpse of them, then there has to be a compatible frequency. And they either change theirs or you change yours. Then you will catch a glimpse through the window, and you will see them. Sometimes they do it deliberately. Sometimes you're just fortunate. But I find that the harder you look, the less you see.
Yeah.
Because everything happens in the silence.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, part of the work of the entities to keep us in a lower frequency is through fear and shame and guilt and ex-wives texting you and sending you nasty comments. You know, it's all that kind of stuff that we and this whole process that we're going. So I'm just trying to relate how your knowledge relates to, can be used in a what's the word, practical way by an average person that hasn't spent years and years and years studying it. And this process for me the last few years is really about learning how to not react to somebody provoking fear or stress or anxiety, and find that Zen point more often than not throughout the day, throughout your waking day, so that you can get to the frequency that you need to be able to have those experiences.
That's right, and everything is really geared up and designed to keep us in a place where we won't have these experiences, because the more experiences that we have, we then make the transition from belief to knowing.
Yeah.
Because when you've seen it, when you've experienced it, then there's where there's no need for belief.
You can't go back.
You can't.
No.
You don't need belief when you know. And it's all of these different things that are trying to prevent us from rising, changing the calendar year so that we are misaligned with cosmic law and the cosmic cycles of the creator, making December the 12th month, making October the 10th, when the words themselves tell you where they should be in the calendar. And that's confusing, and that is misaligning us with star energies. That is removing us from the true cycles of nature. So everything that has been done is to prevent us from rising above and seeing the realities that are forever around us.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I'm seeing more of it. I'm seeing more people seeing more of it. So the veil is definitely dropping right now, isn't it?
It is.
I know you're optimistic the same as me. I want to share that optimism with the subscribers, because people are still wobbling. Oh, how long do I have to hold on for? I've had enough. Blah blah blah. But that's all part of the process, isn't it?
It is. When you look at the meaning of words, and it's important to look at what they meant at the time they were written, not necessarily what they mean now. But when you look at the word fear, it comes from a Hebrew word of yirah, which means to know and to understand. So when you know and when you understand, then that eradicates fear. Fear comes from the unknown, not knowing. So when it tells us to fear the Lord and fear God, it is saying understand the Lord and know God. Because when you do, there is no such thing as fear. Let he without sin cast the first stone. Well, that's talking about enlightenment and knowledge overcoming ignorance. That's what the story is telling us. So when you understand what's going on, when you understand your potential, when you understand where your salvation really is, then you have nothing to fear, because you've gone past the unknown. So I am extremely optimistic, because I've seen ancient records that tell us that this knowledge will re-emerge into society.
I've got an ancient record.
Sorry,
I've got an ancient record.
have you?
Elvis Presley, 1958.
Tell you what, it's now or never.
Sorry, I just had to get joking.
No, that's okay. But yeah, so more people are going to access this knowledge. They're gonna tap into that universal library, which is beyond their senses, and that stores all of this wonderful knowledge, which walks hand in hand with wisdom. And when we understand how great we are, what our position really is, with each person that flicks on the light switch, the more beneficial it is for all of us. And I am very optimistic based on the ancient records telling us that this will happen, and having the sense from other timelines that it has already happened and it is already concluded. So be hopeful.
It's already happened. It's already concluded. But what do you say to people who are like,
I would say I always put it into a movie scenario where you have the script writers who know the beginning, the middle, the end, the in-betweens. They know the conclusion. Then you have the actors who know because they've read the script, which are your initiates, which are the people who know, who are the general population who are becoming more and more in the know. They are reading the script. But the actors are just playing the part. Even though they know the end result, they're still acting each scene. And that's what we're doing. Now, the end credits have already gone and the movie's already concluded, but we're still watching the actors, we're still watching the script. And that's pretty much what we're still doing. Even though the end credits are acknowledging, we're still acting out the scenes to get to the end credits. But there's great hope. Humanity, certainly, there's a mystical phrase that says, keep drinking beer and watching football and you'll have another turn on the merry-go-round. Everybody will have their chance to jump, to skip, to transmute themselves. It might not necessarily be on this circuit, but they will have the chance to do that. They have the chance now, but some people skip lessons. They don't have to. But eventually they will come up to speed. And begotten son, God sent his only begotten son. Well, what is that telling us? Well, it basically tells us that everyone, the begotten is really the wounded lamb. Now, the wounded lamb falls behind the flock because, they're wounded. So they need extra care, they need extra nurturing in order to come up to speed, which is only. So only begotten is for everyone to come up to speed. So that's what we'll do. Everyone will eventually come up to speed and we'll get it and we'll move on.
I hope so. I know so. I don't know what I'm saying. I hope so. I know so. I'm going to there's a few more minutes left. I'm going to ask a few questions. Angelica Esterhusen said she means the organ pipes. What are the organ pipes above the triple arches of church? I know you spelled that wrong. It's okay. It's not poos, it's pipes.
That's okay. Right. When you start looking at the likes of the choir, the likes of the organ, the likes of the pipe, they represent the sounds of the brain. So brain waves have a sound, and the choir represents the brain, and the organ and the pipes represent the brain. So you have inside the cerebellum, for argument's sake, you have an upper and a lower lobe. The upper lobe vibrates forth, and it is shaped like a heart. So he who thinketh in the heart, so is he. That's what he's saying. Your thoughts are vibrated in the cerebellum, shaped like a heart. And all of these organs and pipes and choirs and the way the church is laid out are basically the designs of the body. A church is usually built to what's called canon proportions. Canon is the human anatomy. And you have the nave, the navel. As I say, you enter the yoni, you walk through the chakras, you get to the altar, which is the mind. You put the candle on the altar, which is the illumination of the mind. It represents the canon proportions of the body. So all of these different parts represent portions of the body, and the pipes and the organ and the choir is the brain and your brainwaves.
You'll never look at a church in the same way again. In fact, if we, when it comes to Manchester, do your event, maybe if you agree, maybe I could follow you around and do a live show of you going around the monastery. Would you be up for that?
That would be good, and I've already got permission from the monastery for that to happen. So yes,
brilliant.
Yeah.
That would be great. That'd be fascinating because it's such an amazing building, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's wonderful, and like you said, it was so easy standing there and talking and being able to say, just look to your left, just look to your right, just look up, and people were able to see live and firsthand what I was trying to describe, and it was there physically, which is a luxury.
Yeah, it is. Shop the Breeze, who's my friend in America, who made me a lovely T-shirt and took a great picture of me. Quite a few great pictures, which is quite hard when you're working with this because you can't polish a turd, but that's another story. What one thing does Michael do daily without fail to keep himself in this receivership of knowledge?
What I do is continue to expand on that knowledge, to expand on that information. And with each day, more comes that will enhance and complement. I kind of have a saying to myself that if I know more tomorrow than I know today, and I know more the day after than I do tomorrow, then I'm happy with that. And that snowball is rolling and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So that is what I do on a daily basis. But also try and control your thoughts, try and control your reactions, try and do what you can to put yourself under strict observation and steer your vessel, which is really where the word worship comes from, which is workship. So we work on our own vessel, and that's what I do every day. But primarily, it is this thirst for information.
Yeah, and it's a bit like consciousness; it's ever expanding. So you know that's why it always feels like we're never getting anywhere because you're constantly moving in a thing that's moving with you.
Yes, you are, and it's the same really when you're on a plane, because you're traveling the same speed as the plane. You don't realise that you're going 600 miles an hour. You can't feel that speed because you are part of that vessel. So yes, it does. It's almost like the horizon where you can never get to it. But that's really initiation, which is the expansion of self, in order to be able to take on and tolerate these higher, undiluted divine frequencies. And that really is the essence of what initiation is. So the more information that you can take on, you realise that you are initiating yourself and expanding yourself. And even though you don't feel like you can ever get there, you know, we can't ever know everything. There's too much for us to know. But it doesn't stop us trying, and that is what keeps the ball rolling.
I just I have about 10 piles of these on the floor at any one time, just for anybody watching who wants to know. It never stops. It never stops, which is great.
It doesn't. And again, library book. It began with carving symbols on the barks of a tree. Again, going back to the sacredness of trees, which is where we get the system of cipher and codes.
That brings up a good question from me. Thank you for that question, Tanya. The question from me, you know, cave paintings. So the traditional idea most people have in their head is like a tribe out with arrows and a bison, and they're drawing it. And people call it art. Now, I got an intuitive feeling that it wasn't art recording something. It was early man knowing how to manifest things. So they would draw it to make it a reality. So then they go out and they catch the bison. What do you think to that idea?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one I'd never thought of, but it would make sense because, again, as a more modern day writing tells us, the word becomes flesh. So when you speak or write or manifested, it becomes that manifestation, it becomes that reality. You know, there's a lot of systems of ancient writings where they were drawing the shapes of their own shadows and different things. When you look at Egyptian writings, you know, you have hieroglyphs which control the invisible inhabitants of the elements. They are cipher, they are coded pictures, and the key to the codes are, for argument's sake, the amount of stones on the wall, or the spread of the wings of the birds, and different things. So there's all of these different ciphered codes in the size, in the dimensions, in the amount, as I say, the amount of windows, the amount of bars on the windows, the amount of stones on a wall. All of these different things are really ciphered messages. And again, it's not something I'd thought of in those terms, but I think, you know, manifestation is something that man worked out a long time ago.
Yeah, and then forgot all about.
It was programmed out of them.
I didn't take it away. That's why when you sign up to my email list below, you get my free simple guide on manifesting and how to speed manifesting up. We've got time. I'm going to go for a haircut in a minute. We've got time here for a question from Jack. A haircut, Michael. Do you remember them?
A haircut? I do. I do my own every week.
Mr. Sheen. Right. Jacqueline Hesselink says, "Are you familiar with the books of Anatoly Fomenko?"
Not by name, but if you was to tell me what he speaks about, then I'm sure I would have come across it.
Right. Well, I just asked that one because I was interested in the answer, because I've heard of him or her. I think it's a him, and I need to look into that. Right. Out of time. Wonderful to see you. Thanks for chatting. Great to see you again. I will see you in 6 weeks.
Something like that, yes. Yeah, 12th of February.
Yeah. And all, you know, the links on the screen, guys. Come to Michael's event if you can and get his books. Get yourself boned up and make sure you increase your knowledge every single day and look after your vessel and steer the ship in the right direction, and we're all going to be good.
Perfect summary.
Cheers, Michael. Take care. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.